you know, you've got this finger of suspicion pointing at you. You've got this big question mark over your head. And, I mean, I know you've featured on local television and you've been interviewed there. And obviously the question has to be put, and I know what your answer's going to be, but, I mean, did you kill her?
No. No, I just wish someone had listened to me.
Why do you think they seem to be so convinced that you're, what do they call you, a legitimate suspect?
Yeah, well, I suppose they say the husband's always the suspect.
Now, the man that you just saw on screen may seem like an ordinary and relaxed individual at a glance, but this man is in fact a cold, calculated killer. Mitchell Quy not only took the life of his wife, mother to 2 children, Lindsay Quy, but took pleasure in immersing himself within the media frenzy that surrounded her disappearance. He spent 18 long months denying having any involvement in the sudden vanishing of his wife Lindsay. He rejoiced in playing the victim, tormenting poor Lindsay's family, and much like some of Britain's most notorious killers, even accepted the invitation to appear on nationwide TV. But unlike those that came before or even after him, this man really takes the biscuit, because Quy had a thirst for media attention, so much so that he invited camera crews into his home and even used the opportunity to play mind games with the UK police investigating the case. So in today's podcast, we are going to talk about the fame-hungry egomaniac who thought that he had gotten away with murder, and we are going to reveal exactly how the police managed to catch him.
So we do our research with these cases, don't we? We look into the finer details of this, and I have to say, some of the circumstances around this killing is particularly concerning.
Horrific.
I think that this guy should be in prison for the rest of his life.
100%. I'd agree with that, because I think that, again, the circumstances, like, there are no excuses for doing what he's done, but a lot of the time you'll see people that have done the crimes that he's done that have just owned up to it straight away, or for example, you know, have pled guilty and not tormented anyone, not dragged out the pain and the suffering that others have had to go through. Whereas Mitchell Quy was the complete opposite to this. He tormented the police, he tormented the family had to see him so regularly, and as we've seen from the clips, inviting camera crew into his house. This is someone who wanted to bask in his glory of what he had done. So I think that not only does it show that he's someone that can be enraged and someone that can kill, but he's also got psychopathic tendencies that I don't think a 20-odd year stint in prison will get rid of.
No, and you have to say, the media coverage and the way that he courts the media, I think, is something that was the key element of this case that I found particularly interesting. Like, he invited a camera crew into his own home and actually completely lied to those people. He lied to Lindsay's family. He lied to the police. I mean, this guy was a sociopath, wasn't he? Complete liar. Actually, I think got some enjoyment out of the lying out of it.
100% right. Mitchell Quy was the Ian Huntley before Ian Huntley.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean by that?
Totally do.
In terms of like, he actually liked the fact that he was close to the case. He would call up the police. He would do multiple things, and we'll obviously get into the gruesome, horrific details and the psychopathic details of this case. The psychology of this man is completely and utterly tapped.
It's worth studying, actually, to be honest with you. But why don't we go into the victim first here?
Yes.
Let's talk about Lindsay. She was born Lindsay Wilson, wasn't she? She was from a big family. She actually had 6 siblings. People went on and on about how lovely she was, how beautiful she was, about how much of a nice person she was. But the one thing about big families, I always thought, was that they were quite close.
Yeah.
You know, when you think of a big family, you think, yeah, they stay in touch all the time. They look after each other. They'd always be in each other's lives. Now, I'm not doubting for one second that the family didn't love Lindsay. Like, we see quite a lot of footage of her mum and her father, because obviously they were also doing a lot of media all around this, weren't they? They loved her. It was clear that they loved her. But Lindsay didn't really have a super close relationship with them. She wouldn't see them like every day, would she?
No, she wouldn't. But a lot of that had to do with the man that we can see behind us, Mitchell Quy. Now, obviously, Lindsay remained quite close with her sister, but you're right to point out there would be periods of a month, maybe 2 months that would go by where she wouldn't have contact with her family. Now, obviously, Lindsay fell pregnant at 17 years old.
Yeah, very young.
She split up with that partner during her pregnancy. I think she was about 4 months pregnant or so. And obviously, the relationship with her family became became more intense at that time. She was pregnant. She needed looking after. And remember, when we say here about her not being as close as maybe, you know, she's one of 6, I'm one of 5, yeah? My family, we're all very, very close, right? When we say about her not being as close, that's just by circumstance. It's not for the fact that anyone didn't, you know, get on or anything like that.
So true.
It's just a large family and whatnot. Everyone's doing their own things. However, when she fell pregnant, her family really made it their mission to take her in, to take care of her. And it was at this time, 5 months pregnant, when she meets Mitchell Quy.
Yeah, she finds a new partner. The circumstances around this are quite interesting, aren't they? She's lost her previous partner, the father of her child. This guy comes into her life, and I have to say they use the word weird, because he starts a sexual relationship with a woman that's 5 months pregnant.
Can I just ask you there, straight away?
Yeah.
No matter if the girl is an absolute rocket, yeah, as soon as you can see a bump, could you have any attraction to that woman?
I think if it was my child, yes.
No.
To be honest with you.
No. You are a single bloke.
Yeah.
Yeah. You meet a bird. You've never met her. You ain't grown up knowing her, shit like that. Meet a bird for the first time. Yeah. She has got a visible bump. She's 5 months pregnant. Yeah. That's classed as heavily pregnant. Yeah.
Very much so.
Best part of second trimester, or whatever.
Yeah. People have babies at that time. Yeah.
Premature. Yeah. That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So, can I just ask you, could you be attracted to a woman?
No.
I know celebrities and stuff that I might find attractive, people, you know, whatever in the media, they get pregnant, and then the second they get pregnant, I'm like, yeah, no. And it's not because they're not. Like, they often say about women, oh, you're glowing and stuff like that. It's not that women don't get good looking when they're pregnant, but I just find there's something very, very weird about it. There's something very, very weird about being attracted to a woman who is holding a baby in her stomach that isn't yours.
I think there's two sides to this.
Sorry, shoot me down.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to this. You could fall in love with someone and have an emotional connection with them, but I don't think there's something sexual there. I think there's more, like, I could fall in love with them, but maybe I'd want to care, look after them, nurture them, and see them through the pregnancy. But yeah, like the way that Mitchell Quy comes in maybe professes to an element of his own sociopathy. Really.
And can I just say something, right? Because there could be people that could watch this and misinterpret the way we're speaking here, yeah? It ain't just us that found it weird.
No.
The family found it weird. Lindsay's dad said he found it weird that he came into her life at that time, and his exact words were he caught her on the rebound.
Yes.
But let's talk about Mitchell Quy himself. Mitchell was 20 at the time of meeting Lindsay, meaning he was 3 years older than the 17-year-old pregnant lady. And from the second when he met her, he pretty much did what is referred to as love bombing. He was buying her presents, sending her flowers, spending every day with her, giving her money. And after 1 week, he proposed to Lindsay. Now, 5 weeks after meeting, Mitchell and Lindsay tie the knot. They get married, they move in together. Now, it's worth noting that although Lindsay had both friends and family as guests at the wedding, Mitchell had one guest attend, and that was his brother, his best friend, and at the wedding, his best man, Elliot Quy.
It's probably worth remembering the name Elliot because he's going to come up later in this story.
I think it's definitely worth remembering Elliot Quy, actually. 6 weeks later, Lindsay's daughter Robin was born, whom they both raised together. But it wasn't long after this that Lindsay started to see a change in Mitchell's behaviour and actually started to feel different about the man that she had married.
So she definitely wasn't listening to her family, was she? Because the family knew that this guy there was something wrong about him. I think they sussed it very early. I mean, even from the wedding, the fact that he didn't have any other friends and family there, that would be alarm bells to me. Do you know, that would be the first red flag.
Do you know what I always say?
Go on.
Is there any part of your body that you don't need, or your
appendix.
genetic makeup that you don't need?
Your appendix.
Do you not need your appendix?
No, you don't need your appendix. Gallbladder. You
Really?
don't need your gallbladder.
Okay, well,
one-
you've just fucked my point.
one
But
kidney.
basically, let me tell you one thing. Yeah, always trust your gut.
Your gut, fair enough.
Because you would not have your gut there if you didn't need it. And their gut instinct on this man was don't fucking trust
But you've got
him.
to feel sorry for this girl, right? She's a 17-year-old girl. She's fallen pregnant very early. She kept the baby. Like, she's in a very difficult emotional time in her life, and also she probably felt lonely and wanted some support. This guy comes in, love bombs her, as you say, and so you can understand why she didn't immediately even want to believe it. But the circumstances around it were particularly concerning. She was definitely being physically abused in the house during this time, and there was an episode in which he actually smashed up the house, didn't he? They lived together. It was like a nice family home. He went through, smashed up windows. There's footage of this, the aftermath of it. Smashed up windows, blood all over the windows from where he's using his own fists, ripped doors off windows. So like, we're getting into the character of the guy right now. He has a switch about him where he can switch and just turn and go in a really destructive way.
He can't control his temper. And one of the key things about that incident when he smashed up the house, right, and it got reported to the police and whatnot, was Lindsay wasn't in the house at that time. And I was about to say, God only knows. Well, we do know what probably would have happened. It would have been, you know, what eventually happened, but a lot earlier on. But imagine she had been in the house at that time, and she had a conversation with her sister, and her sister said, if you had been in the house when he had done that, he'd have killed you.
Yeah.
And not only that, she also had conversations with his sisters about his infidelity. Like,
oh God, yeah, that was pretty serious, was it? I mean, she couldn't even go to like shops because certain people in the shops will have slept with him.
Yeah.
That's what the sister said.
Shagger.
Yeah, fucking hell. He was all over the place. But also, what was really weird about this is he was accusing her of cheating throughout this entire period. Obviously,
that's what they do, though. That's what they do, though.
It's gaslighting.
Mate, when you're
isn't it?
cheating,
Classic
when
gaslighting.
you're cheating, you're accusing the other one of cheating.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
It's a classic strategy.
That's
isn't
what
it?
they're like.
But
yeah.
it's proper wrong that he did all of this sort of physical abuse, and then also like he's obviously mental abuse of her as well, putting her through this like accusation after accusation when he's the one being naughty and infidelity. Like,
but
it's wrong.
She does stay with him.
Yeah.
And a year after her daughter Robin, who was obviously from another partner, is born, Lindsay falls pregnant again. But people have got, you know, a difference of opinions on this exact sort of situation, you know, and whatnot. I'm of the opinion that you should only bring a baby into the world if you believe that you're, you know, in a position to bring that baby into the world and in an environment to bring that baby into the world. So that's my stance on things without going too deep into it. I know different people, different cultures, different religions, everyone feels different on this subject. But she decided to have that baby aborted, didn't she? Because she didn't want to bring it in to such a hostile and volatile environment. And when he found out, he apparently beat her.
Yeah.
And once again, rage of chaos descended.
Do you know what was even worse about this is his ego was obviously slighted, because he had gone round prior to this, gone round town and said that she was pregnant and how proud he was that it was his baby, and sort of being let down is particularly concerning, I think.
You know, I was going around telling everyone absolutely completely made up. We got home that night, she told me she was going to have an abortion. To cut a long story short, she had an abortion and I left. Sickened me, it really did. Absolutely sickened me.
So at this time, right, they get separated for about 5 months.
Yeah.
And Lindsay definitely took a turn here where she was happier, things were going, you know, better for her. And that sort of like negative influence of Mitchell had been out of her life.
She literally writes it. She was keeping a diary at the time, and it's saying very, very strange about this diary. Like, in hindsight, it almost looks like the entries to this diary that went on over a couple of years were letters to her children. And it's like, were you pre-opting your death? Did you know deep down that something was going to happen to you? Because she's writing to her children about how she always loved them and whatnot. And if you're not thinking about your death, then you know, you think you're going to be in a position to be able to verbally say that to your children one day. But in those diary entries, she says, you know, like, been without Mitchell for months now, never been happier, things like that. She was getting on with life, wasn't she?
She was. And things had moved on for her in a very sort of happy way. But the thing is, mate, is that this guy, he always came squirreling back. And I don't know how he managed to do this, but he managed to get back in her life. Do you know how?
But, mate, honestly, like, psychopaths are masters of manipulation. And he was obviously able to see that she was still vulnerable. Raising a child is a lot for a woman, even with a partner there. Maybe the partner goes to work and through the days the woman is with the child on her own and whatnot. It's very, very hard, yeah? Raising a child as a single mum is ridiculously hard. So if someone is able to disguise themselves, yeah, you know, as a wolf in sheep's clothing, if they're able to genuinely make you feel like they're remorseful, they're a changed person in general, then you're going to be less reluctant to give them the chance as maybe you would have been if there wasn't a child in the situation.
And I think what he always did as well is he had two sides, two very clear sides to his personality. He obviously did have the element where he loved her. There was a moment in which he would pull out all the stops, buy her gifts, look after her. Definitely loved Robin at this time as well and looked after Robin. It's so hard in that situation to get in Lindsay's head because while all of that negative stuff was going on and all of the physical abuse and mental abuse was happening, there was all this other love that she wasn't getting from anywhere else. She didn't have the support. And I think, as I say, you're in a very precarious position when you have got that child by yourself.
Remember, this is the other thing as well, right? By this point, Lindsay's 18, coming up 19 or something. Mitchell's like 21, 22. I know even myself, like I was more volatile in my
100%.
late teens, early 20s and stuff like that. And like, mate, I'll do things like, never in relationship scenarios, but say like I was probably still like 19 where I would like get frustrated and punch walls and stuff like that, and you do grow out of that over time. So I'm not saying I'd smash up the house like fucking Mitchell Quy did or whatever, but what I'm saying is you learn to suppress your emotions or manage your emotions over time, and there's probably always the part of a partner in one of these domestically violent relationships that always thinks like maybe he'll mature, maybe he'll grow out of it. So as much as in hindsight you can be like, what the hell is she doing getting back with him, you can kind of excuse it. And she does get back with him, and within weeks she falls pregnant, this time with Mitchell's biological son. He's born in October 1997. They named him Jack. And the abuse and the controlling behaviour at this point, now he's got one child with her of his own and obviously one child who he's fathered since birth, it really took back over at this time, really, you know, non-stop. And Lindsay once again leaves Mitchell, but this time not only she leaves him, she actually seeks help from outside sources rather than just the family, doesn't she?
Yeah, she gets help from a women's charity, doesn't she? And she manages to get into how would you say this? Sort of like a shared home where it's sort of like a home designed to look after the kids and raise them in a sort of happy, supportive environment amongst other women, particularly, isn't it?
Particularly ones of, you know, victims of domestic abuse. Yeah,
but it was in the local area. She could, she could stay in that sort of general vicinity, but hopefully be safe.
One thing that, and you mentioned safety there, that was kept secret was the location of this place. They, the charity that she was sort of in cahoots with, they tried as hard as they could to not be able to let Mitchell Quy track her down. However, Southport, where this took place, you know, it's not the biggest of places and whatnot. And when you've got a psychopath like Mitchell fucking Quy, he's going to be able to track you down, isn't he? So he's still, despite having a court injunction put against him, he was still sort of seeing her around town. He was abusing her, hurling abuse at her when he would see her and whatnot. And she was actually given by the police, when she had this injunction put against him, she was actually given a panic button to carry around. But
you know how serious it is when it gets to that point. Eventually, however, Quy did track Lindsay down, and he even managed to persuade her to let him see her son, Jack.
Yeah, and this again, like, it goes to show what a forgiving person Lindsay was, what a loving person Lindsay was, and most of all, that Lindsay wanted one thing and one thing only out of life, and that was the best for her children. And she obviously felt in this scenario like, okay, this man may have mistreated me and he may not love me, but he does love his son. And I don't want to deny my child a relationship with the father.
Yeah. There's one thing about this, though, that they had to keep it completely secret, didn't they? Like, they didn't want to tell anyone about this relationship. And I suppose the key people that they didn't tell about this were Lindsay's family. Like, they tried to keep them completely out of it. Because Lindsay knew at this point, after being at the women's charity, after the court injunction, after telling everyone how abusive he actually was, or trying to tell as many people as she physically could, you know, in a tangible way, like, it still carries on.
Mate, the family were heartbroken because if you think of it, like, you know, it's like the hat trick now of getting back with him. It's 3 times or whatever you've got back with him. Each time you've gone to your family, they've been there for you, they've supported you, and there does come a point when you think, well, do you know what, like, family or not, if you're not going to take my advice, yes, I still love you, yes, I still want to be involved in your children's lives, my grandchildren's lives and whatever, but I am not going to come into that home. I'm not going to be part of what you're letting happen to you, in effect. Because you know, it sounds horrible to say this, but Lindsay did have elsewhere to go. She had already had the other place set up by the charity. She knew that she was welcoming her family home and whatnot. So they were heartbroken by this, and it resulted in there being a bit of distance put between the family and Lindsay herself. They wouldn't see her as regularly as they would like to. They didn't want to ever be in the same place as Mitchell, so they wouldn't enter the home. If they came and picked up the kids for the day or whatever, or picked up Lindsay, they'd, you know, sit in the car and beep outside. They'd knock at the door. They'd never come in. And, you know, they wouldn't be in the same place as Mitchell at all. However, in October 1998, Lindsay actually finally, you know, gets a little bit of freedom, which she would never, ever get. She meets up with her sister, Paula, who she was quite close with. She goes out with Paula, and she sort of confines a little bit in her, but not too much. She actually invites Paula in to her house, doesn't she? And Paula doesn't want to come in. I think there's probably a bit of an unspoken rule in the family that we don't go into the house. Mitchell's a bad person, whatever. And Paula recounts the fact that, like, he just sat opposite her, not saying anything, but just glaring at her.
Yeah, I think the quote was sort of giving her, you know, a look that could kill. Almost. She said she'd be dead if she could, you know, get the look back. But yeah, the interesting part of this was Paula's leaving the house, isn't she? And Mitchell's obviously keeping an eye on Lindsay. And what Lindsay very cleverly does in this point is say to Paula, do you want to take my new number? Because apparently she'd changed her phone number at this point. And so she gives her a little note. And Mitchell's obviously thinking it's the phone number, the new phone number. But there was something a lot more sinister on that note, wasn't there, that was written from Lindsay?
The note from Lindsay just said, "Help me."
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just mad, isn't it? And
It is.
It's mad as well, the fact that she had been with Paula on her own that day, but only decided to give her the note once she had then come back out of the house.
I think she knew how desperate it was. And it's important to know the timeline here. This is October of 1998. This is a sort of, I would say, almost the last call for help, wasn't it? Like, this was a moment in which Lindsay was reaching out to the family and saying, I really need some more assistance here. And Paula, you need to bring me out of it. Paula actually did give the note to her mother, didn't she, as well? And so both of them knew about this incident.
And the thing is, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And there's no one that I feel should be, like, you know, I don't feel like there's anyone that should be critical upon the family. You never know until you're in that situation and whatnot. And the key point that we've got to get across here is the family had consistently for years now tried to help Lindsay. You got to remember, Lindsay was in this other relationship before. Now, we don't know much details on that, but she left the partner 4 months pregnant. You know, there might be a pattern, you know, that we could recognise that was going on here with the men that Lindsay would get herself involved with and stuff like this. For one reason or another, the family don't sort of act on this note, but they do keep somewhat contact with her. By December this year, the kids are a little bit older now. They understand what's going on, you know, the festivities. Lindsay's getting excited for Christmas. On the 11th of December, Lindsay goes round to her parents, and she was described by her mum as being in really good spirits, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was. And I think this is so prophetic in terms of looking at the rest of this story now. This is a lovely, joyful moment, and perhaps the family had thought maybe she has got over it. Maybe things are looking up. But it was I think this is a key moment in the story, really.
Yeah. But just quickly, people, before we get back into the rest of this podcast, please do a massive favour for us right now. Hit the like button. And most importantly, if you are enjoying the content that is coming out from this channel, please hit the subscribe button. It honestly helps a growing channel like this more than you could possibly imagine. So if you want more, make sure you subscribe, because that is dependent upon you doing so. Let's get back into it.
So the 11th of December, that meeting, wasn't it? Was that the last time that she was ever seen alive?
No, it was the last time that she was seen alive by her parents. The last confirmed time that Lindsay was ever seen alive would actually be a few days later, right? On the 15th of December, when she's seen in the local post office. That's the last official confirmed sighting of Lindsay. And then on Christmas Eve, her mother Linda tried to get into contact with Lindsay. She tries to ring her a few times, doesn't get through. She wants to drop Christmas presents over to the kids.
This is one thing you never miss.
No.
This is an appointment that you never ever leave out, do you? Like seeing Christmas presents, seeing family around the Christmas time, even with the emotional manipulation, and even the way that the family wouldn't go into Mitchell Quy house, you still think, give the presents to the kids. Still see them at least.
Yeah, and for me personally, alarm bells would be ringing. Alarm bells would be ringing because what did I say Lindsay's priority in life was?
Her priority was always the kids.
Always her kids.
Family.
Always
and
her kids,
yeah.
right? She would have known full well that her mother would have wanted to drop presents from the grandparents over to the grandchildren and whatnot, yeah? She knew that. Like, she would have known that on the 11th when she had gone round there. I don't know what was said, but there's no way that they wouldn't have said, we're going to get, like, what do the kids want, whatever. She'd have known that. So for me, serious alarm bells would have
So
rung.
why didn't it raise alarm bells?
Mate,
then?
this is
what was going on?
This is the baffling part of the story that
Yeah.
I just honestly don't understand. Because from that date, right, December the 15th, when she's last seen, and then Christmas Eve, when Lindsay's mother tries to ring her, there's absolutely no contact until the 5th of February.
5th of February.
The 5th of February, 53 days after Lindsay was last seen in that post office, as I said, she's reported missing.
So the family obviously reported her missing first. Her sister or her mum reported her missing straight away.
Well, I mean, you'd imagine the first person, if innocent, as he
Oh, God, yeah.
consistently
Mitchell
claimed-
Quy should have been the one.
Mitchell Quy, you'd imagine it'd be Mitchell Quy.
Yeah. No,
Neither.
No, but during this time, wasn't he sort of talking to the family and saying, "Oh yeah, she's fine"? Like, surely he said something on Christmas Eve to placate them and say that, "Oh yeah, she's not around," whatever. There must have been a story that he concocted.
There was a story that he concocted, but this wasn't until 53 days after she was last seen. And
Wow.
Lindsay was actually reported missing by the charity that she had been sort of working with, the Women's Aid charity.
A social
one of the
worker.
counsellors, one of
Yeah,
the social
yeah.
workers from that. And then obviously when Mitchell is then questioned, he gives a very specific version of events. Now, Mitchell's version is that Lindsay goes out on Christmas Eve. She comes home in the early hours of Christmas Day. She doesn't speak to him. She wakes up on Christmas morning. She has a shower. She packs a bag and she leaves both him and the two kids, one of which is only biologically his and one of which is her child from, another relationship. She leaves him and the two kids. And then not only that, very, very conveniently, although she's reported missing because no one's seen or heard from her, in the 50-odd days since, she actually has been sighted. She's been spotted.
Oh yeah, Mitchell Quy seen her loads of times.
He's seen her about, Mitchell Quy.
Yeah. He's seen her down the market. He's seen her down a few places, walking down the street.
She
I
was
think he
horrible to
said.
him in that market.
Yeah. It's not
Yeah.
fair. And it's very interesting, isn't it? Because they interview a chap in the corner shop who she often frequented and went in all the time.
That was the post office that I'm on about.
There you go.
That's
And
the
he
guy.
said he hadn't seen her. Something's not quite right here.
Well, not only that, also, Christmas Eve, mate, busiest night in town of the year.
Yeah.
None of her friends said they met up with her. No one had spotted her. No sightings, nothing like that. This is, the year 2000 now. So CCTV and stuff like that is around and there's no sign of her on Christmas Eve.
She had not been seen for 53 days, and Mitchell had said nothing to her family.
Lindsay's family, they're the last people I'd contact. Why would I contact Lindsay's family? We just don't like each other.
Right, so should we get into the police investigation?
Yeah,
into
sure.
This missing persons case?
It's quite obvious, isn't it? It's an open and shut case. The first people you always go to is the spouse of the victim. It's quite often that person.
No,
so the
quite-
police immediately...
quite often
it doesn't do it, does
it
it?
justice.
So the police obviously start their investigation. The eyes are very much on Mitchell for obvious reasons, and it's fair enough. There was a court injunction against him. There were various abuse claims. The women's charity knew all about him. It was quite obvious the eyes were going to always be on him. Really, the case should have been open and close, but they didn't seem to have a lot of evidence about the murder or anything going on. Everything was circumstantial. In fact, at this point, really, she was just a missing person.
Well, they
wasn't
did
she?
try, though. They did try. They spoke to the family straight away. The family said it will be Mitchell that's done it. And they went into the house, didn't they? They searched the house.
Searched everything, searched the garden, dug everything up.
Yeah.
They were looking at all of the areas around the house as well. And guess what? They couldn't find anything at all. So
Now,
there's no evidence.
Here's where it gets really fucking weird, because Mitchell, in the meantime, whether or not, he wants to be with this woman, whether he cares that she's out of his life or whatnot, this is the mother of 2 children that he is raising, right? He should be massively alarmed and concerned and whatnot. But Mitchell Quy is loving the media attention around the case.
I would describe Mitchell as an egotist. I mean, he's always seeking publicity. He's just basking in all this notoriety.
So Quy starts off speaking with Richard and Judy, who were at the time massive daytime television hosts in the UK. He invites a camera crew into his home, and the documentary is one that, in hindsight, has some of the weirdest and most chilling moments in it that I have ever seen.
The police have been going around interviewing all of the people that I've ever slept with. I mean, I know they're clutching at straws now, but what do they think? I shagged her to death or something? Do you know what I mean? Completely pathetic.
Classic psychopath behaviour, isn't it? Because he was, as I say, enjoying it, and he was playing a bit of a role, wasn't he? And in fact, quite a lot of people started to feel a bit sorry for him.
Mate, he's like the doting dad. He's walking around with the double pram. His wife's done a runner, probably with another man. She's hurled abuse at him in the supermarket and whatnot. And as I say, there were people in the local area that had started to think, if he had done it, he wouldn't be this brazen. He wouldn't be this obvious about it. But there was someone who didn't believe him, wasn't there?
By the way, he's looked Rich and Judy in the eye and he said, "I am not a murderer." So yeah, it was weird. But yeah, the person you're describing, I presume, is the shopkeeper.
There's a picture of Lindsay on the front of the Visitor, and he turned and says to me, "She'll have to come forward now because I've seen her in the marketplace and she's been seen in the black Mercedes." I said, "Well, if that's the case, then, if you've seen her, where's the rest of the people that's seen her?" And he says, "Well," she said, "you're trying to tell me then there's some dishonest people out there?" He says, "Yes." I says, "Bullshit." I said, "I don't believe you." And off he went.
And that shopkeeper, by the way, was not the only person who suspected Mitchell Quy, because he was receiving calls and voicemails from anonymous members of the public who believed they knew exactly what had happened.
"Something you should know, Mitchell. We know you're guilty. You will be caught. Justice will be served."
Now, despite all of this, the pressure you must get from receiving those sort of calls when you know you've got a guilty conscience, Mitchell was still playing up, mate. He liked the cat and mouse chase, didn't he?
He did.
He was even tormenting the police officers that are actually investigating the disappearance of his missing wife.
What did he send the police officer?
Oh,
Did you see that?
Mate.
So basically, the police officer, you'll see footage of him throughout this. He's a normal bloke. He's got grey hair because he's old. So what does he do? He sends him just for men. And the police officer gets annoyed because he goes, "It's not even my colour hair."
Either way, despite only really circumstantial evidence and not much concrete, on the 27th of February 1999, Mitchell Quy is arrested for both murder and fraud. And when he's arrested, he pretty much stays silent. He goes no comment. However, he does confess to the fraud, where obviously he had been cashing welfare checks, basically, of Lindsay Quy.
And frauding her signature. That was the key thing. That was the fraud of this. So this guy, he felt like he deserved Lindsay's money during this entire time.
He was entitled to it because in his eyes, this woman has abandoned him and he's the one that's got to raise the kids. One of them's not even mine. I'm having to pay out of my own pocket. I'm the victim here.
I mean, take accountability for yourself as well, mate. Come on. It is ridiculous. And ultimately, this is another reason that you just see he's a psychopath.
Well, it leads on to one of the most weird, insane clips from the whole documentary. You know the part where he's doing community service and he says this:
"Me having to do this, leave me with the kids. I wouldn't piss on her if she was on fire."
And obviously the camera crew are following Mitchell Quy around for quite a long time, so you can see a change in the nature. I believe that change in his nature comes as he feels that the net is starting to close in on him. And you've got, 1 minute he's joking around saying, "Oh, what do they think I've done? Shagged her to death." And then the next he's sort of wallowing in self-pity.
Have you any idea what it felt like? How many times I've walked out my front door, people looking at me, thinking I've done something like that to my wife?
And one of the worst things about this for me was we've followed the dad of Lindsay quite extensively through this whole thing. And I've seen a lot of footage of him. He's a doting father, obviously cared very much about Lindsay.
He's heartbroken, and you can feel the pain in his voice, in his eyes, everything.
You can. I mean, he's literally switched off at this point. I mean, we also see footage of him searching around everywhere for her. It was gutting. But there's a particularly gutting moment really about this is when he goes to the house to see his grandkids. I think it was every week he would go and see the children.
Once a week
he would look after them, and I think they'd spend some time together. He goes to the front door and he has to every week look into the eyes of a man that he suspects as being the killer of his daughter, and it's just really grim scenes.
I can go round and take the kids off him and try and keep as calm as possible. Hatred, I think, is the feeling that I feel for him.
Now, during the visits with their grandchildren, Lindsay's mother and father would always make sure that her children remembered Lindsay. They knew her, they would speak about her, they would show her pictures. And there was one very concerning moment when, upon looking at a picture of Lindsay, her daughter actually said this.
She was sat on the kitchen floor and she said to me, "My mummy's dead." And I said, "Who's told you that, Robin?" She said, "I can't remember." She wouldn't answer anything else after that.
And he mentioned that Mitchell was starting to lose it, right? And I think this is a key part in terms of the documentary where you really see that personified. He actually called up the police, didn't he? And actually had a frank conversation with like someone on front desk going, "Am I still a suspect? Like, are you looking for anyone else? Like, are you still looking at me?" And they're obviously going to go, "Well, we're not going to tell you, are we?"
Am I still under suspicion of murder? I mean, am I still a suspect in this murder inquiry? Yeah. Is there any other suspect? I mean, I'm not asking for names.
So the police were getting sick and tired of all this tormenting. This guy that was clearly the suspect, clearly the key suspect. There was no other evidence of anyone else. They got to the point in the investigation, it had been a considerable amount of time, where this was the guy. So on June the 7th, 2000, Mitchell Quy is finally arrested on suspicion of murder. And as I say, there's no real evidence to pin the murder on him. So the police are hoping that this guy will make a mistake.
Yeah, well, basically, they're just hoping that he'll crack, won't they? And obviously, 36 hours of questioning, you know, being away from his kids, being in a cell in the meantime in between. Mitchell Quy not holding up well. And despite this, on June the 8th, Quy is charged with the murder. But the key thing is this, isn't it, right? In this country, it is convincing a jury beyond reasonable doubt, right?
Yeah, and now, at that point,
yeah, right, no confession from Quy, nobody found, just suspicion from everyone and a history of domestic abuse. Do you think that it would have been quite hard, in my opinion, to convince an entire jury beyond reasonable doubt that he was guilty?
He would have got off. He would absolutely no way have been convicted with that murder. The evidence, there was no evidence. There was no body. She still could be missing from this perspective. Like, the police don't actually know she's even dead at this point. So, yeah, like, it's very strange. But after that 36 hours and after being charged of the murder, you have to say that he does finally crack. And what does he do?
He confesses. He confesses, and he sings like a canary, mate. All of a sudden, he's now telling police everything, exactly how it happened, and he's even taking the police to the site of where the body, or should I say body parts, were.
He'd spent 36 hours of no comment, and then not only had he admitted the offence, but he'd indicated areas where Lindsay's body was deposited, and it was only then it started to dawn on me that he'd actually cut her up.
So now, after all of the cat and mouse tactics, we finally know what has happened to Lindsay. On December the 15th, 1998, leading into the early hours of the next day, Lindsay comes home. She tells Mitchell Quy that she has been seeking advice to get a divorce, and Mitchell is in a fit of rage. He strangles Lindsay for over 20 minutes, in doing so tragically taking the mother of two's life. He then puts her into the bedroom and he puts towels up against the door to stop the children from smelling the odour. Now remember, earlier on in this video, we spoke about the wedding, and we spoke about the fact that Mitchell Quy only guest at the wedding was his younger brother, Elliot. Elliot is the first point of call for Mitchell Quy. Elliot is called up. He comes over to the house. Elliot, who works as a butcher, by the way, helps Mitchell Quy dismember the body, cutting Lindsay into multiple pieces. Now, I've got to ask you a question, right? Because this is the main bit that just made me think, what the fuck? What lengths would you go to cover for a sibling? Like,
I would take a speeding offence. I would say that I was the driver of a car.
Would you lie about a murder?
Absolutely not. Because you implicate yourself. You're going to jail forever. Serious amount of time.
What about if the circumstances changed? And this is, by the way, this is just like, I as soon as I was watching this case, right, the first thing I thought was, in a million, trillion, billion years, I would never do what Elliot did, right?
Yeah.
But then I started to think about, under what circumstance would I lie for a sibling?
Okay.
If they had murdered
Okay,
someone?
should we do a call now? Right. Hi Joey, it's Josh here. I really need your help. I've been in a pretty delicate situation. Can I ask for something?
What's up, mate?
It's
You
a
haven't done
huge
another
favour.
wanking injury again, have you?
Yeah, no. It's a lot worse than the usual
Okay.
ones, to be honest with you. Unfortunately, I've hit someone in a car. They're in the middle of the M25. Luckily, no one's seen it so far. But I need you to help me get rid of the body, if you wouldn't mind. Would you mind coming to help me just do that for a second?
Yep, no problem. Can you get me a McDonald's delivered and I'll be there in about 25
Yeah,
minutes?
that's fine. We'll get a delivery, but we'll get it slightly further away from the case just to make sure.
Maybe something a little bit healthy. I am in camp.
Oh, okay, fine. All right.
Okay,
Well,
cool.
okay, we'll get you the
No
tie.
worries, no
Yeah,
worries.
fair enough. Right.
But then that's us. That's us. Do you know what I mean? No. Let's stop bantering, right? Being serious. Can I tell you in which situation I would
Please
help?
do.
If I was Lindsay's brother, yeah, and Lindsay belled me up
Yeah.
and said, I've just killed Mitchell. He tried to attack me. I stabbed him. Yeah. Little Mo in EastEnders. When she does Trevor, is it Trevor? No, whatever his name is. You know,
You know EastEnders better than I do.
Back in the day,
Yeah.
people in the comment section will know. If my sister was the victim of domestic abuse and she called me up and said I've just killed him, yeah, I'd take the rap.
Yeah.
Or I would.
Fair enough. But Elliot
What Elliot
didn't do that.
What Elliot did is the complete fucking opposite.
Yeah.
His brother has told him what he has done, and that fucking scummy little piece of shit has gone and helped dismember her body.
But apparently, according to Mitchell, he didn't do that though, mate. According to Mitchell, he just held open a bag, did he not?
Oh, well, that's all right, then, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fine. So apparently, according to Mitchell and his confession, Elliot came over, decided to just sort of look back and watch what was going on, and decided to say, yeah, do you know what? I'll just hold the bag open and you can sort of do your work. Because I'm sure that's how it works.
There's a couple of bags. And
Yeah.
the bag with her head and hands, this sounds so gruesome, I'm sorry, people, but the bag with her head and hands in is actually disregarded, put away somewhere.
Yep.
By Elliot Quy. Mitchell Quy then goes and basically gets rid of the other parts of the body, the torso and the legs and whatnot. Do you know the worst part about this?
Yeah, this is bad, isn't it?
He's a father of two that walks around with a double buggy.
Yeah.
He's doing it with the kids.
Yeah.
He's got the kids with
In the
him
house.
at the time.
Yeah.
No, he's cutting her up with the kids in the house.
Yeah.
But when he's actually
disposing of the body, he's
got
taking the kids with him.
And he actually does it at a place very familiar to him. It's the amusement park in Southport where he actually worked for a number of years before. So he knew the area very well.
Did you know where he ended up putting the heads and hands?
No.
Apparently, he put it in the normal rubbish bin.
So that would have just been in a tip somewhere.
And this is the thing, like the parents will never find the full body
They'll never be able
of
to
Lindsay
fully bury her.
and fully
No.
bury her and have that moment. But that just again shows you this guy is a sick man. He's putting it in the normal rubbish bin. Like imagine that's pretty easy to find as well, by the way. Like imagine if someone just popped their head open and had a look in the rubbish bin.
Disgusting. So shortly after the remaining parts of Lindsay's body are found by police, Mitchell Quy was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 17 years. His brother, Elliot, was sentenced to 7 years for assisting him in disposal of her body. But unfortunately, this isn't where the story and the agony for Lindsay's family ends.
To live with the fact that your sister's been murdered is just something you can't live with, but
To find out what he's done to her, that is the worst thing.
So in a roundabout way, we have to say this is 2 lives that he's taken and many more that he's destroyed, hasn't he?
Definitely. And again, like, one of the things we'll move on to where Mitchell Quy is now. Obviously, you know, that minimum 17 years has now been served, but ller Quy, he's released in 2008. That is hardly any time, by the way, for doing what he did and assisting his brother in what he did. You know, I like to do a bit of digging, mate.
Yep.
I love to do a bit of digging. Couldn't find anything on ller Quy. So
You were on Facebook and he was doing the searches that he does.
I was doing everything, mate. Couldn't find nothing on ller
Fair
Quy.
enough.
But Mitchell Quy himself became eligible for parole all the way back in 2017. He has applied 3 times for parole since, and he has been denied 3 times for parole since. Now, his life in prison, a little bit sketchy. He has actually got in trouble in prison. He's been caught with drugs in prison, apparently, and things like that. His daughter, Robin, has actually released a statement in 2017 following one of his paroles being denied. And she said, "It makes me feel safe knowing that he won't be getting out, and it's a little bit of justice for my mum, although nothing will ever be justice enough."
Yeah, she actually started a change.org petition, I think, to keep him in prison for the rest of his life.
We should link that in the description. We get that. That'll be linked in the description if you want to sign that after watching this. Now, here's the thing that I want to sort of finish things off with. Mitchell Quy is likely to be released from prison, isn't he?
I think with the British justice system, it's fairly likely, yeah.
And
That's
how
scary to
soon, ballpark, you know more than me about, you know.
I mean, look, it
intelligence
depends on the
stuff.
parole hearings, really, but I mean, he's going to have to pass a parole hearing and then get out, basically. So I'd guess 40 years total served, something like that.
So within the next 10, 15 years, you think that he'll be released?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Scary stuff. It really is. Obviously, our thoughts and commiserations and whatnot and prayers will go out to the family of Lindsay and any victims of domestic abuse and things like that. But it was a case that we were quite keen on covering.
This is the thing, right? You have to discuss these sort of stories, and this guy was clearly a psychopath. And I think there are so many other women that are dealing with this in their everyday lives. And it almost brought to life a little bit of thing for me is never go unlistened or unheard of someone that's calling out for a cry for help. Do you know what I mean? And there are circumstances and people out there that might be doing that right now and need some support. And I think, you know, you boys and girls that are listening could potentially help someone in that situation. So I think it's worth remembering that. And I always think back to that note that she gave to her sister and think how different this case could have been if the family were able to help. And again, that's no blame on the family because my God, they were put through the mire, and they had a lot of things going on in terms of the relationship with Mitchell Quy and potentially being scared of him as a person as well for what they would do to him. So no blame on them, but yeah, this case could have been a lot different if Lindsay had managed to escape that situation.
People, let us know your thoughts about this case. Also, please do us a massive favour again. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Let us know in the comments what true crime case you want to see covered next. And we will see you all in the next one.